What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackmine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers begin week 13. Cincinnati Bengals at home. Oh, I apologize. On the road. Another week to calm the nerves, reset everything, and begin potentially another winning streak. But it came without a busy weekend full of overreactions. NFL diving into a situation with the Pittsburgh Steelers and some draft talk, which I am very excited to give my take on. It's been a wild morning. I apologize. Just, Nick does not need to apologize. I need to apologize to everybody for being late today. I have had the wildest of 4 days. We had contractors here on Thursday while I'm in Cleveland working on our basement, because when it sprinkled outside, you would end up with a pond, and we have cats. They like ponds. Not ideal. Had them come. They nicked a water line. That water line went nuts, so I had to call somebody to come replace that. They showed up on Friday night, told us that it was a lead water line, therefore unable to be replaced. So I had to call somebody to come fix it. Haven't had water for 3 or 4 days. That has been an adventure, my friend. And this morning woke up to a gas leak in the basement. And when the gas company showed up, they told me that, well, I have to call a different plumber to come and fix it. It has been one hell of a ride, my friend, but we are here. I have dived deep into meditation and just staying calm, my friend, but I'm excited to get going. This thing always brings me joy, and I'm happy where we stand right here. How you feeling, my friend?
Yeah, I don't know if I can follow that up with anything. I can't complain about anything, that's for certain, but certainly a nice, front row seat of what home ownership is like without without having the problems yet. I know I'll get them eventually, but no, I'm feeling good. I'm ready for another Steelers game week. We had the weekend off, which is always refreshing. Me and the wife started a little bit of Christmas shopping, which is
nice.
It is. Yeah, you know what it is. But you know what? Tis the season. There's a lot of people that say wait till Thanksgiving. I'm not one of those people, and neither is my wife by any stance of the word. So we're in full Christmas mode now. When do you
decorate for Christmas? We're already decorated.
We've been decorated for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah. Oh, it was a couple weeks before in October?
No, not before. Not before Halloween. Not before Halloween.
Okay. Yeah, we decorated over the weekend. It was supposed to be a holly jolly winter wonderland here at the Strackmine household, totaling into, bit of a different holly jolly winter wonderland, but it was fun. It was a good time. We're here. Anybody thinking about buying a house, slide in my DMs real fast. We'll talk. Let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football. They're preparing for the Cincinnati Bengals. I will head to UPMC Rooney Sports Complex tomorrow to begin coverage with Mike Tomlin's press conference. That was pushed back to 2:30. They will have a full-blown practice beforehand, and then 3 more, after that, to get themselves through the week and prepare for Cincinnati. We'll start with what happened on Thursday and where the NFL currently stands with it. According to Cleveland.com's Mary Kay Cabot, the NFL will review George Pickens instigating a fight with Browns quarterback Greg Newsome after the Hail Mary at the end of the Browns' 24-19 upset of the Steelers, and a fine could be coming and or more disciplinary action. Now, this is what I have been told in this instance, because we could sit here and say, well, was George instigating it? Maybe he wasn't. If you go back and watch the film, I think each side will have a little bit of bias when you talk about this situation. Steelers fans will say, well, Newsome clearly grabbed him, and Browns fans will say, well, Newsome was supposed to get him out of the end zone, and George was not supposed to take a swing, and he took a swing. This is what I have been told, that the NFL is reviewing the situation, that a fine is very likely for not just George Pickens, but both of them. However, suspension is unlikely where we stand right now. That could obviously change. Things in the NFL change constantly. I have a hard time believing that the NFL is going to look at this and say both guys are suspended. However, again, what I have been told from sources is that George Pickens is not a first-time offender this season, and because of that, there is more of a highlight on this instance. And while it's still not believed that he will be suspended now, the next one could come with more disciplinary action, and he is kind of on the hot seat with the league to not get in trouble, this being his third time this season that he will, if he does, get fined for a situation like that. The first one obviously being against the Cowboys when he ripped Jordan Lewis down by his face mask at the end of the game. And then the second one being I guess, face mask, which when that fine happened, I think everybody said, oh, that's for straight UFC fighting the Commander's cornerback in the interception. Instead, it was for some random, very strange face mask that I don't think he should have been fined for, but was. That being said, not supposed to be suspended, is on the hot seat with the league, so that next time most likely is a suspension. Not good for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Your confidence level that George Pickens can keep this thing tame, and at the same time, I mean, if you're Mike Tomlin, what conversations do you have? Because this guy he's been showing up late for work this season. That's been known. Mike Tomlin told Rodney Harrison over the weekend that the one thing he would like George to do is just show up on time. That would be great. And this is 3 times. And again, like I'm not trying to sit here and say George is doing anything wrong. I mean, he clearly is, but he's also 23 years old. If some guy was talking smack, I think I would have been more engaged in that play. I'm just guessing. But I also think that there's a side of me that definitely would have smoked Greg Newsome, and would have had no issue smoking Greg Newsome. The other two, I think I probably could have avoided. What's your confidence level that George is able to tame himself? And what do you say if you're Mike Tomlin to try and help tame him moving forward?
Yeah, you have to have the conversation with him of, if you're done, if you're out for a pivotal game, we're done. Look around. Like there's a reason that you're getting the targets that you're getting. We need you to be available and in the game.
Yes.
And everybody has talked all season long about, well, if he goes down with injury, where does that leave the Steelers? It's obviously worse if he's down and healthy and isn't available to the Steelers. So you cannot get suspended, especially if it ends up being for a big game down the stretch. That means seeding implications. That could mean the difference between a home playoff game and a road playoff game. And as we'll talk about, if things continue to trend in the wrong direction, which I don't think either of us believe they will, it could be playoff implications, or you could be out for a playoff game, which is the worst case scenario possible. Yes. If you're Tomlin, you sit him down and say, listen, we need you to be available. And right now you're on thin ice with the league. You need to cut this crap out. That being said, my confidence level that he will is not very high, because he has shown that it's pretty easy to get under his skin for opposing defenses.
I agree. That's what worries me more. It's not Tomlin's ability to control him. It's George Pickens' resilience to be controlled. That's where it becomes an issue in my eyes. Is George is a feisty guy. George is a dude who you will, like 2 weeks from Cleveland, it's almost impossible that doesn't get chippy. And George is going to be at the front and center of that chippiness. But like, what is the line? Can you not cross the line? And I think that's where you go if you're Mike Tomlin, is not, hey, dude, I don't think I'm sitting here telling him to stop. I don't think I'm sitting here saying, George, remove all the fire, get rid of it. You have to play soft. You have to not kind of fight back for yourself. You have to not do any of that. You have to be cool, calm, and collected at all times. That's not who George is. You're going to kill George and what makes him special, I believe. What you have to do is be able to say, dude, you can't cross the line. You have to keep it words only, no physical action. Because the second that you slap a face mask, the second that you get chippy and shovey with somebody, you are going to be the one that gets in more trouble than they are, whether that's fair or not, simply because all eyes are on you right now. And if he could avoid that, if he could just talk, just do the talking, I think it's fine. I think you're good with where you're at. But like you said, like that's tough to do. Where we sit here right now, I don't know what my confidence level is that George is capable of doing that, but that's the conversation I'm having if I'm Mike Tomlin, is just talk, no physical action, let your play be the physical side of things, and let your mouth, chirp away, dude. You want to talk smack all game, talk smack all game. Don't touch anybody, because just like you said, every single game from here on out, we're going to dive into it here in a minute. There are already people saying the Pittsburgh Steelers are somehow not going to make the playoffs, which is wild to say. That is so inaccurate to say. But every single game counts towards your AFC North claim and where you sit in the playoffs. And you can't miss Christmas. You can't miss Philadelphia. You can't miss Baltimore. You can't miss Cleveland again. You can't miss the final game against Cincy. And you certainly can't miss a playoff game, because the Pittsburgh Steelers have literally nobody and no offense to rely on if that is the case. Again, my confidence level, we'll see. Cincinnati's another chippy team and an AFC North team. It does not help Georgia's claim. But again, we'll see what happens. Let's talk Pittsburgh Steelers and the NFL draft, my friend. Things get wild when the Pittsburgh Steelers done walk away for a couple of days, but this one might have something behind it. Okay, something behind it. And ESPN's Matt Miller, who I think everybody respects as an NFL analyst, has the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting a quarterback in the first round, going with Alabama's Jaylen Milroe. Quote, the Steelers' future at quarterback is a big question heading into the offseason, as both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are set to be free agents. I think we've heard that a million times and have had to counter activate or whatever that a million times. Either could return, but the Steelers might be searching for a more long-term option. Milroe has a combination of Wilson's arm strength and pocket mobility and Fields' running ability. He's still a bit raw as a prospect, but he has thrown 15 touchdown passes and rushed for 17 more scores this season. Milroe just needs to improve his touch as a passer, but scouts I've talked to have said he has the most upside of any draft-eligible quarterback in the class. And should the Steelers re-sign Wilson, Milroe could sit, learn, and develop further. So, let me ask you this question. What is more important in the Pittsburgh Steelers' eyes if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is all we could guess? Developing a quarterback behind Russell Wilson for a year, maybe 2 years, or adding to your team to go and win a Super Bowl right now? Or do you feel that the Steelers are Super Bowl competent already and that no changes will need to be made after the season, and that you could get a quarterback in that first round and feel good about where you're going in 2025?
I think what we saw Thursday tells us that you can always add to this team. This team is not a, hey, we're at the Super Bowl level, let's just backfill. That they're always in need of more playmakers, especially with an aging defense. We talked about it last week. TJ Watt's not getting any younger, and that's not the biggest concern. The biggest concern is probably Cam Hayward, who's still playing at a high level, but he is kind of buoying that defensive line. So yes, I think that they could still add at other places, but at the same time, I think that is a position where historically the Pittsburgh Steelers have not done a great job at planning out, right? Yes. They waited too long to do it in the Ben era. Ben didn't help that, and they ended up where they were when Ben retired, right? And they tried to force it, and then you ended up watching 2 years of Kenny Pickett. So I think that regardless of where they finish this year, it's never a bad idea to have a contingency plan at that position specifically.
I agree. And where I stand right now is that if Jaylen Milroe is this biggest upside in the draft class, okay, what are you doing in free agency? Where are you going in free agency from here? Because if you're just looking at it going, Jaylen Milroe is the guy, and our only options are NFL draft or quarterback, build through the draft or don't build at all, well, then you build through the draft. But if you could go out and sign a wide receiver, which that's what I expect. I expect the Steelers to go out and make a splash at wide receiver this offseason. Cool. If you could add a defensive lineman, which there will be options, cool. That solves a big issue there as well. If you could figure out the cornerback situation, great. And on top of that, if you only have one pick in the first round, and then you could go into the second round and say, well, we already have a wide receiver and we figured out our defensive end, our defensive line. Great. Let's go with a corner in this next round. Let's go with an offensive guard in this next round. Somewhere, somehow there. A tackle, because, maybe Dan Moore's gone and Broderick Jones ain't it. Who knows? But I still feel that if they are going to get a guy, Milroe makes sense because his upside is just ginormous. But you have to be able to do, and that's the best part about free agency being before the NFL draft. Sometimes it's the worst part about free agency being before the NFL draft is you get situations like Mitch Trubisky signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers only for them to draft Kenny Pickett in the first round. In this situation, it's okay, cool. Can you do everything else in free agency and then go to the NFL draft and get somebody? And I think that's what the Steelers would prefer, is to fill every hole in free agency, hope that Roman Wilson is another guy at wide receiver next season, and that you're good to go. You got your three-headed monster, and Calvin Austin is still rocking on the last year of his deal, and then you could move forward with that group. Is that a bulletproof plan? No, but I could see that working out to where the Pittsburgh Steelers use that approach and then go quarterback in the first round. Is Jaylen Milroe a name you would consider?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think the big thing that a lot of people say about Milroe is, why would you draft him in the first round? He's not going to be ready. The Steelers are in a position right now where they don't need a quarterback to be ready by next year. If they go through with what we're expecting them to go through with, which is keep Russell Wilson, then you can allow Jaylen Milroe to sit back and learn from Russell Wilson and develop, just like we saw from Jordan Love a couple years ago, with somebody who's probably a little bit more willing to help teach him. Now, Milroe has a lot of raw physical talents. The one thing that he really needs is the processing and the deep ball. Those are the two biggest things to me, is he needs to read the field better, and he needs to get better with his touch on the deep ball. Russell Wilson does a pretty good job of both of those, and he's done it for a long time. So learning behind him, that's not a bad idea. So I think that if I'm looking at Milroe, I'm looking at a guy that is uber talented, that just needs to kind of round out the edges. And I think if you're doing it behind Russell Wilson, that's great. And I know a couple of people have said in the comment section here, well, why wouldn't you just do the same with Justin Fields? I would prefer them to do it with Fields. I don't think that's going to be an option afforded to them. I think Justin Fields is going to get offered a bag to go somewhere else and be a starting quarterback, and he's going to take it as he should.
As he should, 100%. Justin Fields is not an option for the Steelers where we sit currently. I mean, things could change. The NFL market could just totally dry up and everybody say, we're going NFL draft, man. But look at the NFL draft. It's changed. It has definitely changed. Shedeur Sanders is like the only one in the top 10 that you are 100% sold on is going number one overall. And then everything after that is, okay, maybe 2 or 3 quarterbacks go in the top 10. But at one point, it was like 7 quarterbacks go in the first round. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. And I think there will be a drop-off to where Jaylen Milroe could be available for the Pittsburgh Steelers later in that round. But I could see Justin Fields getting an opportunity with the Tennessee Titans, with the New York Giants, with, you know, teams like that are going to be just outside of Shedeur Sanders, not looking to draft a Carson Beck and see the upside in a guy like Justin Fields. There will be coaches out there that take that risk. And I mean, the Cleveland Browns are going to be one of them, where it's, okay, what's going to happen? You know, we won a couple of games. We're not going to go get Shedeur. We're not going to go get this. Like, you know, there's opportunity for Justin Fields after the season. I don't think the Steelers are going to be afforded the opportunity to bring him back for one more year. All right, let's move on here. The Pittsburgh Steelers lose to the Cleveland Browns. Everybody freaks out about it. We freak out about it. And everybody in the comment section on Friday, and this is not, I'm not calling all you guys out, so nobody get upset, told me I'm overreaction, or I'm overreacting. So much so that my 2.5-hour drive home, all I thought about was, man, dude, I was definitely overreacted, man. I was going way too hard on these guys. This is ridiculous. I got to calm it down. Spent the weekend clearly focused on other things, but also just preparing for today to make sure that I was, you know, I went from a 10 down to like a 6. I like to float at a 6. Keeps me cool, calm, and collected. Well, I was very mild compared to everyone else out there in the analytical world who said, oh, the Pittsburgh Steelers are done, man. It's over. You lost to the Cleveland Browns? Season done. 4 days ago, 5 days ago, I guess a week ago now, the Pittsburgh Steelers might be winning the Super Bowl. They just beat the Baltimore Ravens. This team is on their high horse. They are going big. They are going home. Nothing bad is going to happen to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are legitimate, and they could beat anybody. Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, everybody included. They are Super Bowl bound. They lose to the Cleveland Browns, and the 180 is wild. This is what Jason McIntyre, which I understand what I just said, I got it, of Fox Sports had to say about the Pittsburgh Steelers schedule and their outlook on the playoffs. Quote, have you looked at the Steelers schedule, by the way? I'm not saying the sky's falling, but could you have 2 more wins on their schedule? Here it is. Find me the next 2 wins that they have. Well, here it is. Means Cincinnati, Cleveland again. Then you go play Philadelphia, Baltimore, Kansas City, Cincinnati one more time. Mm-hmm. I would imagine 2 more wins is certainly possible. Jason La Canfora doubled down on that and said that, yeah, there might only be 2 more wins on the Pittsburgh Steelers schedule. What are we talking about here, people? Because the Pittsburgh Steelers are an 8-3 football team that have beaten teams that, well, people said they were never going to beat. And we're sitting here right now talking about how the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't going to make the playoffs. That a week ago, last Monday, we sat here on a Victory Monday cheering the Pittsburgh Steelers, how everybody said that they are a top 5 team in the NFL. They are it. The wild part to me when it comes to all this is Kansas City loses to Buffalo. Nobody talks about how Kansas City isn't going to win the Super Bowl. Buffalo loses to whoever, and nobody's talking about how Buffalo is not going to win the Super Bowl. Baltimore loses to Pittsburgh. Nobody's talking about how Baltimore isn't going to win the Super Bowl. These are all Super Bowl teams. The Pittsburgh Steelers lose to the Cleveland Browns on Thursday night, a game that they are historically bad at. And they are all of a sudden done? That they can't beat the Cleveland Browns the next time at home. That they aren't going to beat Cincinnati at least once after sweeping the AFC North last season. That Baltimore is going to beat them because historically Baltimore beats them? Oh, wait, that's not correct. Actually, historically, the Pittsburgh Steelers beat Baltimore most times. Not once a season, most times. That you're not going to get at least a shot at a win over Philadelphia and Kansas City when, again, a week ago we were saying chances are they could beat one of those guys at least. At least. Here we are right now where the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to finish 10-7, head into the playoffs, maybe not even make the playoffs at 10-7 because the AFC is just loaded right now. Their season's over. I mean, I think my facial expressions, and for those of you listening through audio, it's not a good one. Explain a lot here. So I'll give you the floor. What the hell, my friend? Has the ship sunk that bad and somehow we just are on the side that it's still floating? We're still above water over here. It's just going down. We haven't even noticed.
No, the NFL national media is in its prisoner of the moment era right now because nobody can look further back than Thursday night, apparently, because the Steelers this year, yeah, they have a tough schedule to close out the year. They have all division games, and the 2 division games that, or the 2 games that aren't division games are against an Eagles team that is flying high and a Kansas City Chiefs team that almost lost to the Panthers this weekend, but nobody's going to mention that.
No.
But also, nobody can look further back and notice the Steelers are 5-0 against teams with a winning record this year. I mean, it's unbelievable. 1 loss, yes, I understand. It's a bad loss, but they lost to 2-8 teams last year in back-to-back weeks. They still made the playoffs. They still pushed the Bills. This is not a, out-of-character loss for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is unfortunate to say, but even their best teams have fallen victim to the, as people in Pittsburgh call them, Mike Tomlin trap games. And it's specifically not a trap game. It is a Mike Tomlin trap games. And a lot of those boxes were checked off on going into Thursday. Thursday night game, divisional opponent on the road. And then to make things even worse, it was the snow globe game. So yes, they lost. Yes, it's a bad look, but are we really going that far of a 180 in 1 week? No, it's ridiculous.
It's wild to me. The Cleveland Browns beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Cleveland Browns Super Bowl. Myles Garrett said that it took every single thing they had to beat them. The Pittsburgh Steelers are historically bad on Thursday night with Mike Tomlin. They're even worse on Thursday night against losing teams. They almost always drop a trap game during a season. Most time there's 2. Well, here's the second one, pal. Maybe the third one if you want to include Indianapolis. But to be honest, I don't even think that's a trap game. I just think that was a Joe Flacco game. That was a quarterback got changed and the team got a spark because that team's probably not terrible. They were just playing terrible. I don't know what happened and why people are freaking out to the level that they're freaking out, but I'll be very honest with you. If somebody said, no, what are the odds? And I got asked this. The people who were doing my basement the other day asked me. They said, well, is it over? Like, what's going to happen next? And I said, the odds that the Pittsburgh Steelers shock the world in the next couple of weeks and beat teams like Baltimore again, beat a team like Philadelphia, beat a team like Kansas City is certainly higher than if Pittsburgh Steelers only win 2 more games. Certainly higher, much higher. The chances that the Pittsburgh Steelers go undefeated the rest of the year, which I get it, slim.
Yeah.
Still higher than them only winning 2 games. And what are those 2 games? Cincinnati and Cleveland? That's it? Like, I don't think so. I don't think so. The Cincinnati Bengals don't look that good. The Chiefs, everybody watched the Chiefs game. Everybody watched the Chiefs game. Bryce Young is not that good, dude. I'm sorry. Adam Thielen ain't that good, dude. They're beatable. They're beatable. Philadelphia is beatable, and they just lost Brandon Graham for the season, which is a massive blow. And Baltimore, well, we'll find out how good Baltimore could bounce back tonight. But the Steelers have their number and remains it. And I'm sorry, but if Cleveland sweeps the Pittsburgh Steelers this season, then I will change my tone. But I almost give that a 0% chance of happening because they are going to be so pissed off in 2 weeks because you haven't given enough space to forget about this. That's the thing. You're going to give them 1 week against Cincinnati. Okay, cool. Cincinnati's going to be a hard game. Then they're going to go back. Greg Newsome's still going to be on the same rant that he was on the other day. Myles Garrett's still going to be talking up a storm because that dude's still going. It's wild. Like they have not gotten over it. They won't get over it. And I'll tell you, I forget the name and I apologize. Who reported this because it's not going to come to me. Said that the Steelers looked real pissed off coming out of the tunnel. They looked real pissed off in the locker room too. And I would imagine they're going to be pissed off tomorrow. I imagine Thanksgiving ain't going to be real happy for the Pittsburgh Steelers because they're going to be fired up. It's a different tone. It's a different attitude. I'd give a much higher chance that the Pittsburgh Steelers go on a run to finish this season than I would sitting here saying 2 games and missing the playoffs. What are we doing? I would have imagined that was an overreaction tomorrow. And I would have that's the response that I had when I read not 1, not 2, but like 4 stories that said this person says the Steelers are done. What are we talking about? So let me ask, and then we'll move on. We'll start answering everybody's questions. Mm-hmm. On Monday, what percentage of the people that have said that the Steelers are done, that it's over, 2 wins, probably not making the playoffs, change that outlook to Steelers are Super Bowl bound come Monday morning with a win in Cincinnati?
That depends. I mean, it's over 50%. It's over 50% regardless if you win. But if Joe Burrow does what Joe Burrow's been doing and they still win, I think it goes up to 75.
What if Joe Burrow doesn't even do what he's been doing? What if he's unable to do what he's doing? The Steelers just look that good.
You know who we're talking about, right? You know the names you let off this segment with, right? Those two are going to say, well, Joe Burrow had a bad game, which is why the Steelers won. Like they're not going to give the Steelers defense credit.
Yeah, the Steelers defense didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah. So again, I don't pay much mind to those type of people, but I think that there's going to be a large faction of people that if they win, which it's the benefit of 10 days between games, and then it's what you did last. If they win that game in Cincinnati, there's going to be a lot of people that are saying, okay, they righted the ship. All is well. And everybody's going to look at this and say, oh, we might have overreacted last week, which, yes, a lot of people did.
I agree. Shout out to Pittsburgh Steelers, man. Ain't nobody got the national media attention in such a strange light, the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers have the national media's attention in such a strange light. All right, we're diving into all of your questions. So if you got them, please make sure that you're tossing them in the chat. But first, we're going to take a quick break here. A word from our boys over at DraftKings. Long gone are the days of waiting in long lines at midnight to get the best deals on your favorite things on Black Friday. Now, all you got to do is check out my partners, DraftKings Sportsbook, who have touchdowns on sale all weekend long. Now, that's something to get excited about. Did you think that was it? Well, right now, all new DraftKings customers who bet just $5 will get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using my promo code ALLSTEELERS. The crown is yours. That's right. Check out the DraftKings Sportsbook app all weekend long to stay up to date on all of the touchdown offers available. And don't forget to stay in on the action and use your $150 in bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot on an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code ALLSteelers and bet just $5 on any wager and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's promo code ALLSteelers only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Shout out our boys over at DraftKings. I unfortunately ran out of DraftKings money yesterday, which was a brutal day. First time this season, though. First time this season that I sat there and went, well, we're at zero, friends. We are at zero. And you want to know why we were at zero? Because the snow globe game convinced me that the under was going to hit. That no matter what the under was, it was going to hit. Didn't work.
Yeah.
Didn't work. All right, let's dive into some questions. If you got them, toss them in the chat. We will answer as many as we possibly can before we get out of here. Nick, I'm going to toss it to you. What do we got?
Yeah, let's kick things off with the honest truth. Appreciate you as always. Who says, good morning, gents. Not Steelers related, but my God, what a game from Saquon Barkley yesterday. On a scale of 1 to 10, what are the odds for him to get MVP and beating the rushing record? Also, praying for Ashton Jenkins to go to the Steelers.
Yeah, Ashton Jenkins would be awesome in Pittsburgh. Saquon is a stud, my friend. Very grateful that to some very small degree, I've known Saquon for a while. He actually, if we were in a room, he'd dap me up and say, what's up? But he won't remember this conversation because he's an NFL player and, you know, I'm just a guy that does a podcast. He told me one time in college that I wasn't wearing enough cologne. He said, you always got to be the strongest smelling guy in the room. I've never once followed that advice, but I think about it every time I put cologne on. I'm going, is that enough? Yeah, that's enough. Saquon would be fun. Him beating the rushing record is definitely a possibility. Him winning the MVP, much less of a possibility because it's a quarterback award, but I'm not going to rule it out. And if anybody's going to, it's going to be Saquon this season.
Let's jump down to the Honest Truth's second question here today. It says, after playing with the Bears, are we sure that Justin Fields leaves Pittsburgh? Even with being offered $30 million, I'm sure he sees how much an organization like the Steelers can play a huge role to his success.
I agree with you. But if you were an NFL quarterback who truly believed in himself, you believe that you are capable of taking any organization and making them a winning organization. And that's going to be the same with Justin Fields. Is they're not going to sit here or he's not going to sit here and say, you know, hey, I'm going to stick it with Pittsburgh because, you know, this is a team that in 2 years we're good. Also, what does the deal with Russell Wilson look like? Is it 2 years? Is it 1 year? Is it 3 years? I don't think we know. And that will play a role into it as well. I'm sure they will negotiate with both. I'm sure they will talk with both. However, once Russ inks a deal, if he does, depending on what that deal looks like, it will drastically change Justin Fields' opportunity, as a lot of things could happen. And say Russ signs a 2-year deal, those 2 years means that Justin's going to get one more opportunity, one more shot to be the guy. And if he's not the guy, he's a backup quarterback for the rest of his career. I don't think he wants to take that shot. I think he wants to go somewhere else and have an opportunity now while it's hot.
Let's go over to Germaine, who says, what's the deal with Arthur Smith not steadily feeding both Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington? They should get more looks. He goes to them and then ghosts them, and they're making great plays when they get the chance.
I agree. I think the Steelers have to use the middle of the field way more. It's confusing why they don't. I get it. It's a Russell Wilson thing. He has never been comfortable in the middle of the field. He needs to be more comfortable in the middle of the field. I don't know if that's a possibility at 35 years old or 36 years old. I don't know if you could do that, but I agree with you. You know, Pat Freiermuth, Van Jefferson even made a play over the middle of the field. Calvin Austin could get used in the middle of the field more. Darnell Washington, certainly. It just doesn't make sense why the Steelers are eliminating it and only focusing on the outside where it's very predictable what you're going to do in the passing game. It adds much more variety, and that's why these guys are open, is because it's almost a shock when you throw it to the middle of the field as the Steelers. If they do it more, it opens up the outside as well. They certainly should. I 100% agree.
Let's jump over to Cody, who said, speaking of quarterbacks potentially in the first round, Cam Ward would be nice to go to the Steelers. Do you think he's going to go first?
I think Cam Ward climbs like Michael Penix did. Like come draft season, Cam Ward is the guy that is just moving up real fast. The Steelers would love a Cam Ward. I'll tell you that. The Steelers would love a Cam Ward. Would they get him? Possibly if he's low enough, but I think he climbs higher than that. Jalen Milroe is a guy that I think is going to climb, but people will see Anthony Richardson and use that as an excuse to kind of avoid the situation. I think Cam Ward will be the guy that they say there's a lot of upside here, and we're going to go with him over Milroe. I like Cam Ward. I think I like Cam Ward more than Milroe. I think he goes first round. I think he goes before the Steelers, though.
Let's jump back to William, who, speaking of Ashton Jenkins, wants to know what are the shots that we draft a guy like Ashton Jenkins?
I think it's high if he falls to them. You know, he's a Najee situation where if he's there, you can't avoid him, right? You can't. You have to go with the guy that just fits everything so well. So I would say if he's there, certainly. Why wouldn't you? You know, I got a hard time believing the Steelers would pass up on Ashton Jenkins. That being said, Dallas is going to have a top 5 pick, and Ashton Jenkins is going to look real good with a star on the side of his head.
Let's go over to Lifted One. Says, let's be honest here. Did you guys hear Winston's speech before the game? There's no way that guy was losing.
I think. Look at I've met Jameis Winston once. He's exactly like that in real life too. It's crazy. Super nice guy. You know, acknowledges every human being. Like he is very proud to meet them. It's an honor to meet a guy like Noah Strackbine when, dude, you're Jameis Winston, pal. Like it's an honor to meet you. I think it's hilarious that he's the dude that got caught stealing crab legs in college, and this is where we are now. Like it is wild to see where Jameis Winston went to or was to where he has come, because it's just wild. There's no other word to describe it except for a wild change. But shout out Jameis Winston, dude. I've never heard anybody complain about Jameis Winston.
Let's go to Marlon Lewis, who says, wouldn't the reaction of the Steelers potentially missing the playoffs be acceptable? If we're doing what we've always been doing, why would anything be different than it's been going?
Yeah. I agree. I think, and that was kind of the point, is the Pittsburgh Steelers have a media presence in the national media that is wild. And it's hilarious because the players in the locker room have a hard time differentiating like the people who are there compared to the Stephen A. Smiths and the Jason McIntyres and whoever, you know what I mean? And that's the worst part, is that they're just like, you guys suck. I'm like, dude, I promise. Yes, it is me, but it's not everybody else. It's not Jerry Dulac. It's not Jeff Hathorn. It's not those guys. And I just think it's wild how, like, if you listen to me and Nick talk, if you listen to the Post Gazette, if you listen to Chris Carter, if you listen to Nick Fairbaugh or Alan Saunders or any of those guys, Derek Bell, they have such a different tone, attitude, and reality of the Pittsburgh Steelers than those on the outside in the national media. And it's wild, man. It's wild. It's wild how different it is.
Let's go to Germaine, who says, what's Austin and Tomlin's fascination with only using 2 defensive linemen? We're not generating enough pressure up the middle with consistency.
Yeah, so it just goes to sub packages. They spend a lot of time in sub packages. I would guess it's different for every game, but they do. They use Cam and Larry Ogunjobi more than they use Keanu Benton or anybody in the middle. Again, I would imagine that going back and looking at it, which I will not lie to you, I have not watched the Browns game simply because life has been a bit hectic the past couple of days. There was a lot of moments where they were probably in sub packages. Do I agree with it? Yes, but only if you're using the correct people. I think Keanu Benton should spend way more time playing defensive tackle than he does nose tackle. And I also think you should be using guys like Patrick Queen and Landon Roberts to get to the pass or to get to the quarterback as well as often as you can.
Let's go over to Yinzer Joe, who says, I absolutely agree that the Browns won their Super Bowl last Thursday, and it was kind of given to them. It wasn't even a close game, even though the Steelers beat them in every single stat. Do you think the Steelers come out hot against the Cincinnati Bengals as a result?
I will give you an answer to this tomorrow, because I want to say yes, but you got to see practice. You got to see what's going on. You had 4 days off after a loss that really hurt your morale. What's going to go on from there? How pissed off are you still going to be on Tuesday? How pissed off are you still going to be on Wednesday? I think that's the answer to the question, is what do they look like tomorrow? because if they look good tomorrow, this is a team you should feel confident in. If they are just saying, yeah, we're over the Browns, whatever, we're past it, that's a team you should be concerned about. And that's a team that, since he's going to come off a bye, they're going to be hot. They're going to be looking to make the playoff run. It's not going to be easy. You got to be red hot going to Cincinnati, going to the jungle. I think tomorrow we'll get a very good tone check about where the Pittsburgh Steelers stand heading into Sunday.
Yeah, taking on a desperate team in their home field is always a tough situation. So the Steelers need to start hot on Sunday, which is something they haven't done most of the season. But
no, I agree.
Let's go over to Easton, who says, what game do you think is more winnable for the Steelers, the Chiefs or the Eagles?
The Chiefs. As crazy as that sounds, the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are a beatable team right now. They don't have the lockdown defense that they had at the beginning of the season. Patrick Mahomes just had his best game yesterday, but Noah Gray was on the receiving end of that. That being said, Isaiah Pacheco is coming back. You're probably going to get Hollywood Brown back all before the game. I just think that plays a role into it, but I would say the Chiefs for sure.
Let's go to Solo Joe, who says, hey, boys, random question. What's the most random Steelers player that you can think of? For me, it's Sutton Smith.
Yeah, I would say, man, that's a tough one. Avery Gentry Avery, whoever that is. He just got cut by the Colts. That's the one.
Name that comes to mind for me is probably, I mean, off the top of the head, Jarvis Jones, even though he was a first round pick, is crazy, but there's plenty of them. There's plenty of them.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that's a wrap for questions today.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.